hope you're doing well. My name is Martin and I work as a front-end / full-stack developer at a Swiss company called Paranor. Recently I was trying to spice things up with the testing, and we started to use Cypress, and I was designing this software just by drawing sequence diagrams, and I was just thinking that things can be done easier, that we can generate this as we do with the OpenAPI schema. And I came up with a small generator tool which will turn the process around. Or usually when you write a software, you write a software, then you write a test and document what you've done. However, I think we could do it the other way around and write the documentation, generate tests or write them, and then write the application. Or yeah, we could still write the application, then write the documentation and test it using the test generated out of the documentation. So let's have a look. Here I have prepared a sample. I've copied a simple to-do list from Vue.js page, where we can add something like go out and complete to-do, see how many of them are left, filter, or delete one of them. So very basic application. We want to test and document, or we want to develop something like this and start with the documentation driven development. To do that, we have here a file called docs.ts, and it is a TypeScript definitions using the models from the generator. However, it doesn't have to be a TypeScript file. It could be a JavaScript following these practices, or it could be a JSON file. However, TypeScript is quite powerful here, gives us a lot of possibilities to share the properties and models, to share and see what can be written here, there, and yeah, basically it will help us a lot. Then there we have a participants defined. So for example, a user of type actor, and just to see, yeah, if I would write it right now, I get this whispering. Once we have our actors, we could define a use case where we want to start the application, make sure it's clean, add a to-do, complete the to-do, the very basic stuff user would do, and we call it happy use case because there's no error present in this use case. Use case has its ID, description, which participants are there, and steps. Steps are basically the tests done in this use case and who communicates with whom, that we see here. For example, visit to-dos view is type of message, and user calls front-end application and defines some criteria like visit index page. We don't have to do this, but we could. There are a couple of options. At the moment, just this one is implemented, and it's relying on Cypress code. However, we don't have to provide it, and it will generate the tests abstracts for us, or we provide it and it will generate the full tests for us. Or in the future, what I would like to do is to define different types of criteria and just generate the code for any kind of framework, testing framework you would like to use. However, today we will demonstrate just the code approach in the documentation. So let's say Cypress, please visit index.html file. Once you've done this, step is completed, and we want to make sure that front-end this responds to user with a message, and the criteria here are that the page title is displayed and contains to-dos, that the input for adding new to-do is empty, and then there is no to do yet when I start the application. Those are the criteria for the second use case, second step of the use case. At the end, we have a documentation model which just documents what is the name of the application, some description, version, and which use cases will be tested here and generated. And when we're done with this, we can right now use the generator, and we do it by calling npm run build docs. When we're done with this, we will see a documentation HTML file created here. Yeah, this is not very nice until we open it. And when we open it, we get a documentation for our application. We have all the participants of our use case here, some description, which could be in the future markdown and contain many other stuff. And then we have in these boxes the individual steps. So for example, the very first one we've seen is visit to-dos view, and it has just this one criterion. So user says visit to-dos view, and frontend is supposed to visit this index HTML file. When this step is completed, we go to the second one over here, and frontend is supposed to return the page to the user, and user want to make sure that there is a title to do's, there is nothing written in the input to add new to do, and that there is no to do in the list yet. Then we go and go and go, all the steps are numbered, and we can provide some notes if we want, and maybe in the future we just make it much more dynamic, that we can click on each step and see all the details with the markdown descriptions. At the moment, this is a very basic sample and proof of concept of the tool. And we don't end here with the documentation. We could either now start implementing the application or start implementing the tests. But to help us with the tests, we just wrote some assertions and comments here in the documentation. And we have a spec file here, but there's nothing in it. And we would like to do somehow documentation and test-driven development. So let's call another task called build tests. Once we build the tests, we get here a file with all the models we will need, and our use case generated here, which contains all the steps. So like here, it contains all the criteria we see here, and it contains that criterion code which will be executed in the tests. Once we have all of these generated, we can get back to our spec file and import our happy use case, and all we need to do is call run. Yeah, now we have generated the call, we have generated the tests, and we can call Cypress run tests headless. I'm sorry, I will run the test now in the console because I cannot switch the screen while recording at the moment. Very unfortunate. However, let's demonstrate it just in a console. Now, I think I haven't written correct task, did I? Okay, yeah, we just have to wait a bit, and it's running all the tests, and we see they are passing, which is great. So it was testing all the criteria in the steps as they appear in the diagram. And yeah, if we would not define the criteria code in the documentation, we could do it here and override this abstract for happy use case. Or we can just, for example, set up the login before all of this is done, and we would do it in before method of this use case, so it happens before all the steps are executed, and just say console log authenticate user and do something like that. Or we could access all the steps and override something which is in a steps of to do happy use case. So for example, we could say get me visit to this view, and by the way, you get all the types, even you can get the type of the properties you add, and they are not really part of the model, so you can invent your own thing and then use it here. And once we've done this, we can also do before, after, or set up the configuration for the test, access the criterias, or say run only this test, please. So when I do this, we had 6 tests, if I'm not wrong, yeah. And if I rerun, we will run just this one step. So it should skip all the 5 tests which are left. And yeah, it's starting the framework now, and we see it was running just one test, so we can do this as well. Or we could skip just this one, which would basically break the whole testing because it would not even visit the page. Let's wait a bit and we will see how this goes. Yeah, seems like it's not going to work, and it failed, and now the other steps will fail as well. Yeah, that's it. However, you could override what's being done or implemented there, and once you override it, you can actually access the step, so you would have all the information to do and implement what you want to do. So let's not use the generated criteria, and please visit the index.html page like this. Or we could, for example, override just this one criterion using the step, pardon, not really the steps, we need to do it over here before, and everything is actually implemented as a Fluent API, so you can change things. Yep, you can chain it, and here let's find which one want we to use. We want to override this criterion visit index, so we get criteria, and let's say criteria visit index. We want to do something before, like console log, or we want to override it so it doesn't go to that index page, but it goes to any page we would like to go with. And Cypress visit blah blah blah, something like that. This is basically the way you can intercept the tests or implement them if you haven't attached the code in the documentation, or if the type of criterion is not implemented by the framework. However, all you need actually now is just to run the tests, and that's pretty much it. If we do it again, it's gonna work. And the best thing on this is you can also watch the file, so if the documentation file changes, you can regenerate the diagram and you can regenerate the tests, so you will directly see whether the tests are still passing or not. And yeah, let's quickly do that as well. We had here build docs, it's just :watch, and let me close everything and go here again. It's here, open it, and we also want to see the documentation. So for example, let's change the type of actor, so participant frontend will also appear as an actor. Yeah, okay, that's wrong, so let's make it back and we see the changes directly. And that would be pretty much all from me today in this short session. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you like this approach with documentation and tests first. If not, or if so, please write me any comments, what you like, what you're afraid of, and what I can do better here. And I hope you have a good day. So see you next time. Bye.